What I was failing to realize is my skills carried over fine. It was my mentality that was broken.
Hi there, I'm Charlie, your online business manager and owners build their businesses with a focus on using the internet and online technologies in an appropriate and cost-effective manner. People hire me to take the stress out of managing their businesses and allow themselves to focus on what they do best. Today, my guest is Stephen Morris, a United States Army veteran who spent much of his adult life serving his country and leading combat and non-combat deployments worldwide. I'm not going to tell you a lot more. I just want to take this moment to say thank you, Stephen, for taking the time to have a chat with us. And I believe we're going to be talking a little bit about leadership as well during our time together. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Charlie. It is so awesome to be here. I'm so excited. And yeah, leadership's my jam. So if you're ready to nerd out, like let's do it.
Let's nerd
Let's
out.
dive
Let's
face
nerd out.
first.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I understand that you're in the Army. We were talking about that just before we started the call. You spent a few years in the Army and then
Yeah,
decided
a
to go
few
and do something
years.
different.
Yeah. I spent most
So
of my adult life in the army, so it was a very deep passion of mine. I miss it to this day. But one of the greatest things I got is, fortunately for me, and I understand, I totally get it's not the same case for everybody, but my experience in the army is I always had amazing, amazing leadership. Looking back, I can't identify a single leader I had that I would say was a bad or toxic leader. So, I mean, just having these amazing examples. And then when I got out of the military into the corporate world, the exact same thing happened. I got thrust into an environment, even though I didn't really like the corporate world. I was surrounded by these great guys that were able to mentor me and help me uh, get my feet firmly planted on the ground. Because trust me, it was not an easy transition from the military back into civilian life.
I can imagine it wasn't. If I understand some of the differences, you probably went from a very disciplined environment. I'll use the term controlled, but probably not controlled exactly, but disciplined and controlled environment into something that was a little bit more freeform.
I mean, yeah, very, yeah, disciplined is a good way to put it. I always say high octane, very alpha driven. I don't, I don't say alpha male because, there are females, but everybody's an alpha or trying to be the alpha in the military, no matter gender. So, I mean, it was just high octane, very alpha driven society. And then when I got into the civilian world, and obviously the high octane piece that fizzled away pretty quick. The other thing was that I spent a vast majority of my life building this certain respect in the military that totally dissipated in the civilian world. No one cared about who I was and what I did. And I say they didn't care, kind of tongue in cheek a little bit. I know people do care about their service members, but at the same time, my accolades mean nothing to them. I have to break everything down, Barney style, so that they understand. And so, not having the time or resources to do all that, they just didn't care. And that was a very hard realism. There are a ton. I mean, we can spend the entire podcast talking about it all, but yeah, it was crazy. It was 3.5 years of hell.
And so I guess just on that little bit before we go forward, it's almost like you've built up all of that respect. You built up people knowing you in the army, and then you've come out into corporate world, and they don't know who you are. You got to redo it all again. I mean, that's got to be really hard work.
Yeah, it is. And the way I describe it, excuse me, the way I describe it is it felt like I had wasted my entire adult life,
Oh
because it
no.
didn't translate. It just didn't carry over. But what I was failing to realize is my skills carried over fine. It was my mentality that was broken, right? So, it took a couple people to jerk my chain and get me back on the right course. But once I got up here fixed, And for those of you just listening, I tapped the dome bucket. Yeah, I'm sure you heard the hollow sound, but yeah, it took some people to get my head straight and really get me focused back on the right path and get my mindset the way it should be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that bit because I think that's really important for a lot of people, especially going into the topics we're going to talk about today. Mostly because some of us have spent all of our life in corporate. We've come out of corporate to run our own business, and no one cares. It's the same sort of thing. No one cares. They just want to know if you can do the job, and if you can't, they'll go somewhere else. So we've got to rebuild all of that stuff that we built up in our other career. So why don't you have a chat to us about leadership and the things and why you left corporate, what you did after you left corporate, and why?
Yeah, so I it's hard to explain why I left the corporate world. Um, because I loved my job. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the company I worked for. I think I was just tired of taking orders, to be honest with you. I was tired of politics. I was tired of things having to do things I disagreed with. I just wanted to be my own boss, I guess. And so I left the corporate world and started Renowned, which is my company, where we train and mentor leadership and management. We help with personal development and goal setting, and we really focus heavy on mindset. Mindset's one of my biggest things, and yeah, I just it's hard to really explain why I hated it so much. I just really hated it, and I've never
I
been happier. Go ahead.
I really don't think a lot of my listeners are going to actually not understand that.
I mean, yeah,
we're,
it's
we're,
just it's so hard to explain because people are like, "Oh, you got a great job," and it's like, "Yeah, it sucks." And they're like,
yep.
"You don't like the company?" No, I love the company. You don't like the people you work with? No, I love the people I work with. Like, what sucks about it? I don't know. It just sucks. Like, it's hard to explain, but I think the thing that I saw the most, and I've always believed that if you come complaining about a problem without a solution, then that makes you a part of the problem. And so I realized that even though this was a great company and I worked for great leaders, um, our leadership training program was non-existent. It was horrible. And I realized as I looked at other companies, it's the same. We produce great managers, right? And this company just was blessed or lucky or whatever you want to call it, that they had these great leaders in it. And I was like, I don't want to see like this leadership development uh, happen the way it is. And here's a great statistic, I guess, for you. MIT here in the United States did a study, and they found that the average American doesn't receive formal leadership training until they're 44 and a half years old. Isn't that insane? That is 2 decades in a job or in a profession without formal leadership training. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to assume you've never shot a rifle a day in your life. Is that a safe assumption?
Honestly, it would be, but I have.
Oh, man, what you Australians like? You're the second Australian that's got me with that. Okay, so I'm going to say that you haven't, and you haven't because I say so.
It's a safe assumption to make. I've got to say, it's just one of those things that people don't expect me to say. Oh, yeah, I've done that.
So we're going to say you haven't, and if you want
Fair.
to come hang out with me in the United States, I'll be able to teach you how to shoot a rifle in 8 hours, and you will be
Yep.
shooting effectively 500 meters, hitting your target every single time. Right now, if you grew up like I did on a farm shooting a rifle since you can remember 5, 6 years old, um, and then you try to come and have me teach you, it's going to take me 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to break all the bad habits that you've developed over your lifetime. And then it's going to take me
Yep.
another 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to rebuild good habits. So we have 20 years. My point is, we have 20 years of bad habits built in all of these leaders when we could have just been doing it steadily, slowly as they moved through the ranks. slowly just build a foundation for them to learn from. And then we're creating good habits that last a lifetime rather than creating bad habits that we have to break and then retrain good. It's completely asinine. It's a broken system, and I aim to change it.
Look, I love the idea. I absolutely agree with you. We have something we call the Peter Principle. I don't know if you've ever heard of that,
No.
but the Peter Principle is being promoted to one level above your capabilities.
Okay.
And
Sink or swim.
that's what it is you end up with someone who does a really good job at something. So, they may
Mhm.
be a really good trainer, and they train really well, and they go get in there and people love them, and they just eat it up and they love doing it. And then the company says to them, "You're such a good trainer. We're going to make you the manager of your section." And the last thing they want to be is a manager. And they're thrown into that role with no training. They're really, really good at training, but they don't know how to manage. It's not something that you learn. It's not something
Mhm.
that you just do naturally. It's something you've got to be taught to do. So yeah, I totally agree with you. So what do you think is the answer to that? I mean, obviously you've got some thoughts on it.
So again, we want to start building as early as possible, right? So my company, we're in the process of developing an app that we'll be able to sell to companies, that they'll just introduce their new hires to, and as their new hires progress through the company, they're just playing in this app, and it's going to be gamified, but it's going to be educational, obviously based, and is going to allow them to advance through manage their leadership, and management teams are going to be able to see their activity, yada yada yada. But it's going to start building that foundation early with the company rather than, like I said, waiting those 2 decades. The other thing is, um we have to make it simple, right? One of my biggest pet peeves, especially in the whole self-help world, is you have the 12 fundamental principles that are going to change your life. You have the 36 ideas that you need to think every day. You have the 5,682 principles that are going to help you lose weight. You have the 1,600,283 principles of whatever. It gets ridiculous, man. Like, stop it, just keep things simple, right? So I built my company off three ideas. You remember these three words, and these three words, if you lead with these three words in mind, you are going to be a successful leader. And that is community, consistency, and clarity, right? As
Three
leaders, we have to
C's.
under the three C's, right? Yeah, and it's easy to remember because they all start with C: community, consistency, and clarity. And it even rolls off the tongue nice, right? It's easy to remember, right? So as you're interacting on your daily, day-to-day basis, on your daily duties, you got to think, am I embracing my community? Am I enriching my community? Your community is your people, right? And your people are the lifeblood of the leader. Without your people, the leader's stuck doing it all, and the leader is incapable of doing it all, right? That's why he has people. So your people are your lifeblood, and when you understand that, and when you treat them like they're your lifeblood, then you're going to see a thriving community. You're going to see people that have each other's backs rather than competing with each other. And of course, you can create a community that has healthy competition and healthy what's the word, conflict, but it's not going to be that toxic, cutting people's legs out from under them community, right? That's what we're trying to build. So that's what you have to focus on. If you focus on consistency, you're going to show up for your people the exact same way every single day. And the key thing this does is it empowers them to make decisions on your behalf, right? When you make decisions in a consistent manner, they're able to predict what you're going to think about the small minutia of the daily, right? So they don't need to come to you and waste your time with making a decision that they can do themselves, knowing how you make decisions, right? So if we operate with consistency, they know what to expect. That creates emotional safety because, again, they know what to expect. And then when we operate with clarity in mind, we are constantly communicating. You cannot over communicate. I am so sick of hearing the gurus say, don't over communicate. There's no such thing, right? Now, there is communicating in a very bad way where it's just word vomit. Yeah, don't do that. That's a waste of breath. That's a waste of time, waste of energy. And no, you're going to lose everybody. But you can communicate clearly. If you communicate consistently, you are going to create this environment where everybody understands the mission. Everybody's bought into the vision, and everybody knows exactly where they stack up on the goals. They know exactly what they need to do on a day-to-day basis, and they're going to execute. From that, you're going to get initiative, you're going to get decision making. Most importantly, you're going to get innovation.
Okay,
That was a
so I
lot.
love that. I love that. I love every bit of it. It sounds like a lot of the stuff that I grew up learning. And I don't know even how. I think it was just, again, I was just very lucky to have some very good managers and some very good role models in my life where I could do that. I'm going to say I'm perfect at it, because I tell you what, it takes practice every time. And sometimes it's just easy to go, I'm just going to go and do this myself. And you shouldn't. You should rely on your community to help. Um, I guess I just really wanted to touch on your community. You said it's your people, and you made a really valid point there that, a leader can't do everything. That's why they've got people. I see a lot of times, and as I just said, I fall into that category occasionally, where your leader tries to do it all. They don't feel that they can rely on their community. This obviously is something that you learn to do, and this is part of what your system teaches.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of what I hear, I would say 90% of the time is my people aren't trustworthy. And it's like my follow-up question when people say my people aren't trustworthy is, have you trusted them? Like, have you tried? And like, people react different when they know you're just being passive aggressive, or when you're just kind of patronizing them, right? Like, here is your responsibility, but it's meaningless stuff, right? Like, if you hand me a list of spreadsheets and you're like, go through these and alphabetize them, whatever, dude. If you come to me and you're like, hey, you're in charge of this project, suddenly, like, that builds up rather than just keeps me down here. So when you go to your people and say, like, I'm going to entrust you with this very important piece of the pie, suddenly their mindset changes, their mood changes, their work personality is going to change, because now they feel the responsibility of what's going on and they feel entrusted, right? If you want your people to trust you, you have to trust them first. It's never going to be the other way around. You're never going to get their trust without trusting them. So yeah, you have to build that community. And if you want the community where, a great example is a good friend of mine. She was working on this really large project, and she made one, I believe, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was just like a decimal error, and she ended up costing the company a seven-figure amount of money, right? And she went to her team and she's like, y'all, I did this. And her team was like, their first response was, how did you do this? And their second response is, what do we need to do to help you? Right? Isn't that the
Wow,
team you
that's
want?
nice.
Right?
Oh, wow, that's so good.
And it's because that's what she focused on. She focused on building that community, that trust, that personal relationship with her team, so that when she screwed up royally, she was able to go to her team, minimize the damage, and keep her job.
That's fantastic. And that's such a powerful example. I was actually thinking of something similar in that you said you've got to give your team the trust, like trust your team before they start trusting you. And I think part of the trust is also trusting them to be able to come to you with issues like that, be open to feedback, listening to them, because you're trusting that they're going to give you the thing that you need to move yourself forward.
Ah, absolutely. But you also have to create that environment, right? If they come to you every time with some, if they make a mistake and they come to you and you blow up or you reprimand them every single time, no matter what it is, if you put them on blast publicly, there are a million ways you can totally screw up that scenario. If you constantly do those things, they're not going to come to you. You have, and for me, I believe it's the vulnerability starts with you. You have to be the one to be like, hey guys, I made a mistake here. I'm sorry. I'm going to get this fixed ASAP. I just want y'all to know if you see this on the schedule or whatever, that was me. No excuse. I'll get it fixed ASAP. Don't even worry about it. Right. Or like my friend, she goes to her teams like, I've made a 7-figure mistake, right? Like that is max vulnerability. That's vulnerability to the max, like that's crazy. So I mean, you have to create that environment. That environment's not going to Harry Potter itself into your environment. You have to intentionally create it, and that's by focusing on your community and building it with intentionality.
So one of the things I also wanted to ask you about there is being condescending in being so open and you can trust me type thing, because you can be, can't you?
Yeah, you have to be genuine, right? One of the greatest examples of this I ever saw was this dude that I worked with when I was in the corporate world. This guy never smiled. He always looked grumpy. Um, he never complimented his team ever. And if he did, it was the greatest day ever because they legit did something heroic. Um, but they loved him to death and they would follow him to hell and back because he took care of them, right? But the most important thing I noticed is he was 100% genuine and he was 100% consistent. Like they knew what kind of dude was showing up to work every day, right? Is the same guy every single day. So, I mean, they knew what to expect from him and they knew he was being 100% genuine. So when he said, I got it, I'll take care of it, that meant he had it and he'll take care of it. When he said, you did a great job at this on this project, that means you did a really freaking great job on this project, right? So he intentionally created that environment and he was intentionally genuine and open and vulnerable, even though it didn't seem like it from the outside looking in because he just looked so grumpy all the time. But I mean, I was floored because I didn't really know him at first, and I was floored at just how much his people loved him. And as I watched and
So
observed like
good.
his daily action, like he took care of his people. And the biggest thing he did that I saw was he kept the corporate nonsense BS as off of them as much as he possibly could. That dude ate a bullet for his team almost on a daily basis. And it was incredible to watch, and they loved him for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just sort of reminded me of one of my managers who taught me that they were an umbrella for us. They caught all the crap on the way
It's part of the job, man. It sucks, but it's part of the job.
It really is. And, I mean, all credit to him too. He would actually, whilst he wouldn't expose us to it, he would let us see the sorts of things he was dealing with so that we could understand what it was we were doing that we could do to make his job easier as well. So it became a real partnership working with this guy, one of the best guys I ever worked with, I've got to say.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you look back and remember the lessons he taught you, you'll see everything he did was intentional.
Oh,
Everything he
yeah.
did was thought out, right? And that's another big pet peeve I have. People are, oh, that's a naturally born leader. Bull crap. There's no such thing as a naturally born leader. There's just someone that may have some natural skills like charisma. That's something that comes natural. That's also something that can be taught, right? I'm not naturally a charismatic person, so that was something I had to be taught. But leadership, like all these principles, these are things that were taught. And man, I just can't stand it when people say, "Oh, that person's a natural born leader." Nah, he had someone great that mentored him, and then what he did, I loved of showing you guys what he was doing. I love that because what's a leader's number one job? It's not to shield you, it's not to guide you, it's to teach you how to be a leader yourself. Right? Because
Yep.
we're all called to be leaders. It may not be a leader of a Fortune 500 company or anything like that. It may just be leading yourself, right? Because that's a pretty important job, leading yourself. But we're all leaders in our own right, and so I think that's something that should be taught in schools, like from grade 1 all the way to
Be
12.
so nice. That would be so nice. It really would. Like sometimes it make our jobs as parents easier too. So yeah, so just on the authenticity, the thing that I really wanted to highlight there, because I've been on the other side of it where I've had people who have been inauthentic, unauthentic, and they're like, "Oh, you've
Let me
done
interrupt
such a
you.
good job."
Let me interrupt you. Could you tell instantly that they were full of crap?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So why do we even
They
do it?
just they
It's
just
dumb.
annoyed the crap out of me. I swear. Like, oh, you've done a really good job here, and thank you so much for doing this. And you get this really sort of sickly sweet thing. But I think you could have done this better. I'm like, so why didn't you bloody say that right up front? Yeah, say, okay,
Right.
look, thanks for doing this. I noticed that this wasn't done the way that it could have been done, or you missed these things. Here's some things that I'd like you to look at to improve on next time. I'm good with that. I'm great. You
Right.
haven't wasted my time, and I haven't waited for the other shoe to drop to find out what the hell I'd done wrong, because I knew I had done something wrong. You just
You know,
know.
it's funny with these conversations like what you're bringing up. When we try to think of a PG way to say this, when we sugarfoot our way around these conversations, we waste time. We waste
You
energy.
do.
Imagine if we just like, hey man, I asked you to do this way, but you did it this way. Is there a reason? No, no, you just okay. Well, hey, just next time, can you kind of sure that up a little bit, pay attention, a little bit more to the detail on what I'm asking you to do, please. Yeah. Okay, great. How was your kid's baseball game yesterday? Right? How much different is that conversation when you
That's
end it with
fantastic.
something like something personal to them that they care about, that shows that you care about them. You don't just care about the mistake. Yes, that's a big deal, right? That can cost us clients, that can cost us money, that can cost us revenue, that can cost us all kinds of things, right? We got to care about that. But like I said, our people are our lifeblood, so we can address the immediate problem, just rip it off like a band-aid, like, hey man, this happened, give them a chance to tell you what happened. Maybe there is a reason, maybe there wasn't, who knows, and then finish it with a positive vibe, positive energy, right? And if you sugarfoot your way around that conversation, like in your example, like you can never end that way because it's just been, if you put rose petals on top of pig crap, it's still pig crap.
Big crap. It doesn't even smell good.
No, it doesn't even. It's just now you got rose covered pig crap.
Uh, in fact, one thing you did in that example you gave was you actually asked if there was a reason they had done it that way. So it wasn't just that you've done it wrong and you didn't do it my way. It was, look, you didn't do it the way I asked you to do it. Was there a reason for it? Because there could well be a valid reason, and that's a
Yeah,
learning exam. That's a learning opportunity for yourself. It's like, why did you do it that way? Can you explain that to me? Something I used to love doing that, and I love it when people come to me and say, "You did this differently." Yeah, I did this differently because of this, this, and this. Was there a problem in that? Actually, no, that's better. Right. Well, thank you.
right.
Yeah.
Or it could be like, yeah, man, I didn't do it that way because the system was down and I wasn't able to use these tools. And then you're like, wait, what? Our system was down? Like those tools aren't available to you? Why not? Oh, I need to fix this now. Let me go call IT.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Or
Like
it might just be,
these,
I told you to log in and do this thing. Well, I actually couldn't log in, or I logged in and I didn't have
right.
access to that part of the system. Oh, well, that's my failing for not checking that you had it to begin with. I
Right.
just
They
assumed you had it.
right. And so these are, and or chances are they missed the mark. And that's okay too, because people are people and they're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. The example of my friend, that's a big mistake. That's expensive, right? That's her job if her team hadn't covered for her. But these things happen. And when you have the emotional intelligence, the psychologically safe place, and the community of people that love each other, love you, and you love them, like there is nothing that you guys can't accomplish. And that's why whenever I'm talking, with my clients, it's like I tell them I'm going to teach you how to build a team or a community within your organization that resembles the best special forces teams, right? Because that's what we're going for, because that's what they do.
That's fantastic. So, do you mind if we talk a little bit about the clarity? Because you mentioned it and you gave us a little bit on it. We've spoken about community and consistency because they're both kind of related in that conversation. But let's talk about the clarity and what you actually mean by that and what people can do. Some practical examples of clarity and how it works.
Yeah, excuse me. So I mean, clarity, like, first of all, I already mentioned, the verbal vomit, right? We want to avoid that. We don't want to just ramble on about nonsense. We don't want to repeat ourselves over and over and over again. We don't want to repeat ourselves over and over and over again. And when we repeat ourselves over and over again, it gets really annoying, right? You see what I literally just did it 3 times, and I want to punch myself. Like, it's annoying. Don't do things like that. The
You,
word vomit is
and people
horrible.
just start filtering it out. Like this, oh,
Yeah,
I'm
you
off doing
tuned
so
out.
you're saying the same thing again. I don't need to listen to that. And then you miss the important bit.
Exactly.
I
So
never do that.
when we communicate with clarity, we're removing the word vomit, right? We're removing the repetitive. We're removing jargon. That's one of the biggest annoyances in communication is jargon. I'm sure you have jargon in your field that would blow my mind. I can literally talk military in complete acronyms and never actually say a word, and it will be a coherent sentence to other service members, right?
Right.
Take away the jargon. If I've worked for the company for a week, I'm not going to understand the jargon. If I've worked in a different field and I just moved to this team, I might not understand the jargon, right? So when we're doing important communications, whether it's a team meeting in the morning, we're laying out the roles for the new project or whatever, we do not use jargon. We got to take that completely out of our vocabulary. We got to communicate clearly. We have to communicate with intentionality, as in we're very specific with who we're talking to. So if I am unveiling a new project, it's not, hey, you guys are going to do this. It's going to be, hey, Charlie and Steven, you guys are responsible for graphics, right? Even though that was kind of a given, I'm still communicating that to you because Steven might have missed the memo on that or something. When we fail in communicating, we cannot be mad at our team for missing the mark. That's our fault. We didn't communicate. That's why I say you can never over communicate. Communicate in small batches. That's kind of the way I like to do it. And it's kind of, this can be a podcast in itself, but basically the premise is I'm going to communicate the most important details to you 5 to 10 minutes. And then later on, I'm going to reiterate those details and I'm going to start breaking down the next phase. The reason I do that is to allow people to have time to digest, because if I dump a massive amount of information on you, you're going to be thinking about it and not listening to the next phase or the next steps or the next goals or the next mission or whatever the case is. I have to give you time to digest. So there are several different ways you can do it. I prefer just to communicate in small sections. In the Army, we call it warnos or warning order. Hey guys, we're switching to this type of project. These are the details. More to follow. Stand by. Right. So now they're thinking about the information they just received. So when it comes time to communicate the next phase, I can clearly communicate the next phase without having to worry, are they still trying to understand the first part?
They understand that we've just switched gears, or the train track has just switched tracks and we're now moving off in another direction. Yep.
Right.
I I actually, because I was a trainer as a younger woman, and one of the things I learned to do when I was training was you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, you demonstrate, you let them practice, and then you tell them what you told them. So you can wrap it all up into one, or you ask for feedback and then you tell them what you told them. So you wrap it all up into one little sort of thing. You let them get that right, and then you move on to the next thing and you build on the next thing
Mhm.
from there. Doesn't work in every case, but I think it's just a very, very similar sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like you said, breaking it up into small doses. And yes, sometimes it doesn't work like that because sometimes our hair's on fire and we have to, put fires out, and that's okay. But when you practice the small batch communication, when you practice ensuring that you're constantly clear in how you're communicating, and very concise in how you're communicating, and you're communicating directly to people, not just a group, right? Think about it. If I'm communicating to you directly, Charly, because I'm looking at you and I'm using your name, even though we're in the midst of a group, that kind of grabs your attention, doesn't it?
I know you're talking to
If-
me. Yeah.
right. So if I'm like, yeah, Charly, and we got this coming up, that's pretty exciting, don't you think? Yeah, Stephen, that's pretty exciting. Okay, Joe, what do you think about this? Oh yeah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm drawing them in by using their names, not just communicating, blasting out to the group. So, I mean, yeah, I love what you talked about also is asking for feedback. Charly, what do you think about this project? Are you pretty excited about it or are you dreading it?
I'm dreading
Oh
it.
yeah, Stephen. Yeah, you're dreading. No, why are you dreading it? Let's let's communicate. It's not just you giving a ton of information. And one of the most destructive things you can ever do for community consistency and clarity is tell your people you will communicate when you're ready to communicate, or anything of that variation, right? If they come to you and they say, "Hey, Stephen, I heard the company is going this direction. Is that true?" And you can, even if you can't tell them directly, like because the company's sworn you to secrecy for whatever reason, even if you can't tell them directly, you can give them something, right? Like, hey, look, I can't confirm or deny, but don't worry about anything. I am going to take care of you no matter what, right?
Yep. Look,
So,
even if it's down to, I'm sorry, that's something I actually can't comment on at the moment. But as soon as I have something, I will let you know.
boom. Yeah, absolutely. There are a million ways you can handle that, but but saying the words "I can't communicate" or "I will communicate to you when I feel like it, or when I want to, or when I can," like those are not valid validating statements, right? So all you're going to do is stir up the rumor mill even more. All you're going to do is make them feel inferior to you, which that's the worst thing that they can ever feel, right?
Yep.
Yes, yeah, and I think leaders do it because they feel like it gives them power. Honestly, I think that's the
Mhm.
biggest reason. It empowers them because they have the information. But in the military, one of the quickest things you learn is the person that fails to relay information is the person that's getting everybody killed, right? It's that important that we communicate, because that failure in communication, that breakdown, is what's going to get someone killed. And so I know it's not quite as crazy, and I guess I shouldn't make assumptions, but I'm going to assume it's not that crazy for most corporations. And but I mean, still, it is that breakdown that can destroy a company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could actually send a project to the walls just so quickly. It could alienate a client so very, very
Mhm.
quickly if that communication isn't there. If if your field guy is out there doing something and saying something that they've heard as a rumor through somewhere because they're not getting clear communication through their
Oh
management
yeah,
channels. Oh my goodness, the amount of times I've had to go in and clean that
yeah,
and
it's
then
horrible.
pull them aside and like, what the hell are you doing? Why did you say that? Well, the client asked me a question. You're like, yeah, okay. You guys aren't the salespeople, that's right. You're the techs.
Right. But I mean, if it's not been communicated clearly, Obviously, if they're not scanning their own lane and they're stepping outside of their lane, that's a little bit different of a conversation. But still, if it's something that the way I always approach it is if it's a scenario that can happen, then that's a scenario we need to be ready for, right? So,
Yep.
should that information been communicated to him? Probably should have, so that he could, and what's the client going to think when he goes up to the sales tech and he has a or I'm sorry, the tech installer or whatever, and he asks the tech installer a sales question, and rather than saying I don't know, I'll have to call the salespeople. Well, instead of the like, hey, I'll have to call my boss. He just is able to answer the question. What's that going to tell the client?
Oh,
The
that you're
client's going to
really
be like,
good. That you actually care for your people. Yep.
yeah, like, oh, this dude's on his
Yep.
stuff, right? I hope I
Yep.
hope all your people are like this. Oh yeah, we all know this stuff. Cool. I now feel secure working with your company because I know you guys take it serious.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I just wanted to touch back on the clarity, and you spoke about your vocabulary and don't use jargon, which I absolutely agree with. Um, I'm just going to say, make sure you know who your target audience is. So there are times, as you
Oh yeah.
mentioned, that using your jargon is absolutely okay, and sometimes it's necessary because if you don't use it with that group, and you are, I was going to say dumbing it down, but you're simplifying the terms, they're going to get really annoyed at you to begin with because they're talking about.
Right.
But the thing I sort of wanted to touch on, I've heard people say don't use big words,
Yeah.
don't use well, not even just big words, but it's just don't use words that other people might not know. And I'm like, well, how do I know that
Complicated.
word? Sometimes, you might use a word and they go, well, what's that word? Like, okay, if you don't know that word, that's right, I'll tell you what it is. But you don't want to be changing the way you can communicate so dramatically that it's no longer authentic to you. So if you've got a word in your vocabulary that someone in your group may not know, that's okay, I think, because that's a learning experience for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I love to use big words when I just talk in general because it's funny the reactions from people I get sometimes. And I legit look up words just so that I can use them. I'm a nerd. I'm a huge nerd. But in my actual communication though, I won't do things like that. And it is important, one of my professors, they're the worst, man. Um,
Oh,
one of the things we have to remember is if you have been the uh, research and development director of this company at Apple for 20 years, you are probably going to have a level of knowledge when it comes to what goes on in that industry that far surpasses 99.99% of the world's population.
yep,
Right. So you're going to be, my point is, you're going to be significantly smarter than everyone else on the team. Your job as the leader of that team is to bring them to your level,
yep,
not expect them to just jump and get up to your level. You have to go down to where they're at and lift them up to where you're at. And professors are the worst at this because the language they use and the way they talk, I don't know if they're taught to do this in professor school or what, but it's so annoying. It's like, dude, I don't know what you're saying. He's like, it's in the textbook. Yeah, like 900 pages in, we haven't even got that far yet. Like, dude,
yeah.
chill
which
out. Like,
which
what are you
page and
saying?
which part?
Like, what are you
Yeah, and
saying?
you get people like me who can't who I can read, but you give me a 900-page textbook and I'm not going to remember it.
No, not at all. But the where they missed the mark and the professors that always made the biggest impact on me were the ones that didn't do that. They were the ones that came to my level, talked to me the way I'm used to being spoken to, and then they lifted me up and they taught me what the words, what these words and philosophy is a great example because philosophy can use some pretty big words. So teaching me what those words meant, using, and it doesn't have to be, okay, Stephen, this word means this thing. It is, you've slowly built me up to a place to where you can use the word in a sentence and I kind of figure it out, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It becomes oh, what's the word? Intuitive.
Intuitive. There you go. Perfect. I'm glad you
Yeah.
thought of it because I was like, ooh, my brain just shut off literally.
Like I
So,
said, well, you saw me struggle. It's there somewhere. It's on the tip of the tongue. Yeah. But I think it's just really important to know who your target audience is and what their
mhm,
level of understanding and knowledge is. Modify the your words and the way you're saying things to that target audience, but also don't condescend to them, that
mhm.
you think that you're so much smarter that they're excuse the wording, they're idiots, so you're going to talk to them like they're idiots. Give them some benefit of the doubt. Then always, that's why I always ask for the feedback. Is there any questions on that? How did we go on that?
Mhm.
Is there something that didn't make sense? And once you do that, they'll go, what, that word? What did that mean? Or when you said this, what did you mean? I'm like, oh, okay, let me go back and redo that bit. That's just something
I,
I've picked up in my time.
you've said you've talked about getting feedback several times now, and I just that so free advice for every leader listening to this. In the Army, we call it an AAR, after action review, and we conduct an after action review or AAR after everything we do. Literally everything we do an AAR. The reason we do that is so that we can literally perfect our craft. We can perfect what we're doing. When you see, the Navy SEALs doing these incredible things that they do, and we're like, oh, that's so crazy. I could never do that. No, they've just literally perfected their job. They've perfected their craft, and that's how they do it. So you have a team meeting in the morning, do an AAR. Hey guys, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Charlie, give me one thing we're doing wrong. Okay, how can we fix that? I
Yep.
don't know. Okay, well, let's think about that. Let's have an answer for that tomorrow. All right, Stephen, well, give me one thing we're doing right. All right, perfect. How can we improve on it? All right, have an answer for me tomorrow. Like, and you can constantly be building this up. You have a new project meeting, AAR. You finished a project, AAR. Everything you do, you just take 10 minutes, you do an AAR, you get feedback, you get the things you did good, the things you could improve on, the things that were in the middle, and you build your foundation off of this. And that is how you build a team that has, perfected their job.
We're talking about this in terms of business and corporate and such. I'm just going to say, try this with your family. Try doing that with your family, and you will be surprised at what you come up
Yeah.
with. I swear, I used to go on holidays with my kids and my ex, and we'd come home and I'd go, okay, what did you like? Fantastic. What would you do different in that? Like, what would you do to make that better? What didn't you like? What did we need to improve on next time we go? Like, oh well, the air mattresses were crap, so we need better air mattresses. Basically, it was one thing. Oh, we forgot the mosquito spray, mozzie spray. I was going to say mozzie spray, but so many people wouldn't get that. The Australians would.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So that's just got to go onto our shopping list for next time. And I tell you what, the amount of times that the family would then step up and the kids particularly would step up and say, okay, so we're going away this time. We need to make sure all of this stuff, we've got all this stuff, and they'd go and get the camping gear out and they'd make sure we had everything. And if we didn't have it, they'd put it on the shopping list and remind me that I had to go. Or as they got older, go and buy it themselves.
Right. And the best thing you're doing, whether you're doing this within your business or if you're family, you're absolutely right. It is a great hack for family as well. You're teaching your kids to be oh well shoot, what's the word? Critical thinkers, right? You're
That's the
teaching
one.
them
Yeah.
you're teaching them to think outside the box. You're teaching them to look at things maybe with a little bit of question. Right. I mean, my initial reaction is the vacation was great, but was there something that could have been better? You know what? I didn't like that. And then, then it starts going down a rabbit hole of now you're like doing self-reflection, like, okay, was that really messed up or is it just me? You know what I mean? Like, and you're teaching them this critical thinking exercise. You're teaching your team this critical thinking exercise. And to be perfectly frank, and I don't mean to
Yeah.
go, be political, but the modern world kind of discourages critical thinking, right? Because everything's fed to us. So I mean, it's becoming a more and more useful skill as you go, and eventually it's going to be like, oh shoot, you can critically think, you're hired, CEO,
Yep, not
20
wrong.
years old,
Not
no excuse.
wrong. No,
So I
I
mean,
entirely agree. I didn't even know what critical thinking was when I started my Masters of Business Admin. Like they said, critically analyze, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Then I worked out it was just stuff that I did anyway. I
right.
didn't
And
know
you
what
know
the
what's funny?
term was.
What's really funny, Charlie, is when I'm still in school actually. I didn't start school till I got out of the army because I'm dumb. But
No, no, don't say that.
when no, that it was really dumb because if I had got my bachelor's while I was in the army, I could have got my master's and PhD for free.
Yeah,
So
okay, fine.
yeah,
All right,
pretty
I'll
dumb.
give you that.
But so yeah, like when and people think that soldiers are robots. We're taught to be robots, right? We're just taught to follow orders. That's actually the furthest from the truth. We're taught to be very critical thinkers. We're taught to look at every situation with optimism and skepticism at the same time.
Yep.
That's just the army doesn't need robots. They need people that can operate on their own. And so whenever I started school, there's a class called critical thinking, is like critical thinking 308 or something like that. I'm like, what a stupid class. Like, who doesn't know how to do that? And but then
You'd
when
be
I did it, it's like,
surprised.
yeah. I was like, holy crap, like this actually needs to be taught. Okay, my bad. Like, but yeah, like,
Yeah,
and then as leaders, that's our job. We have to ensure the education of our teams, and that's part of the education we need to be teaching them.
that's fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it worked really well for me. I still see my kids do it. They'll sit down after dinner one night and go, "Hey, what about this?" And off they go. They'll work out something
Right,
and plan it the way through. It's great. I mean, my kids are adults now, so that's good. They should be. They don't need their mum to do it.
right, right.
Look, I'm just going to do a quick, given that we've been talking about community here, I'm just going to talk about my community for a couple of seconds. And then I'm going to ask you another question. So, being a business owner can be tough. Being a business owner who works remotely can get lonely and frustrating. That's why I started my locals community, a community for business owners that could be a bit like the water cooler of old. Treat my community as a place where you not only get to interact with myself, but with each other. You can gain inspiration, provide advice, and of course, as supporters, you'll be able to ask questions of myself. Now, to be a supporter, it's only $2 US per month, which is absolutely less than a cup of coffee, especially these days. And that not only gives you access to me, it also helps me to keep creating content like this, like my daily inspirations and like the tutorials that you see coming out. So come along and join me at askcharlyleetham.locals.com. Back to us. Thank you, Stephen, for allowing me to do that.
Did you say $2?
$2 US per month. Yeah,
Two,
two,
one, two.
one, two,
Wow,
dos, $2.
wow, mind blown. Nice, very
Yeah,
nice.
well,
Like
it's
I
just
like that.
it's just stuff that I would do as standard if someone came along to me and asked, and now I can do it as part of a community and share that wealth with others if they want. So it's what I give
And
back to my community.
I'm guessing that $2 is more support for platform equipment,
Um,
stuff like that.
like I said, it just helps me keep going and doing what I
Yeah,
do. The idea of
That's
the charging the
incredible.
$2 is making sure that the person who wants to be a supporter and wants to be there and wants to do the interaction actually wants to be there. It's that little bar that you set where you
Right.
say, you just don't get to come along and ask questions because it's free. If you want to ask questions, this is a value. There's a little bit of value associated with what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because one, I'm a firm believer you deserve to be paid for your work. Um, but with that being said, I'm also a firm believer that knowledge should be freely given. Um, I just created a webinar that I'm launching here in a couple of months. It's going to be a whole big program on how to set goals, because I have a very specific way that I set goals, and I've done it for years and years and years and years and years. And finally, somebody's like, dude, you could sell that. And it's like, huh. So, what I do is I built this webinar where I teach people how to do it for free. And if you want help,
Mm-hmm.
if you want me to handhold you through the process, well, then you got to pay
That's where
me.
you pay. That's exactly right.
You're right, but
Yep.
I'll give you the knowledge for free, and you can go figure it out and do it on your own all you want. But if you want me to handhold, you got to pay me. And so, I mean, I love that like $2, like that is, to me, that's very powerful. So I just want to give you kudos for that, because I think that is
Thank you very
super
much.
sick.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Now, what I wanted to ask of you, because I think we're coming to an end of our time together, what is the one thing you'd like our listeners to take away from this today?
You know, I think the biggest thing I want people to understand is that society today, our corporate culture today, politics today, I know we feel like we're just one person and we can't change it. But I just want to point out Martin Luther King was one person. Abraham Lincoln was one person. George Washington was one person. Christopher Columbus was one person. Joan of Arc was one person. Jesus Christ was one person. Um, like history is full of just one person doing something amazing. So when you see a problem, if you complain about it, you're a part of it. If you see a problem and you're like, you know what, I'm going to try to fix it. You may never fix it, but at least you tried. And that makes you a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Never think a problem's too big for you. I promise you get the ball rolling, you're going to be amazed at some of the things you can do. So I never thought I would be sitting here doing podcasts at 10 o'clock at night, running my own company, giving away all this stuff. Like, I never thought I would be me, but here I am. And it's because, I saw a problem and it's like, look, I can fix this. I know how. So, be that one person.
That's fantastic. I love it. Be that one person. I think that's a great, great motto to have, a great, great approach to life to have. Thank you so much. Now, please tell me, how can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about what you do, if they'd like to get hold of the webinar when you put it out, if they want to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to Renowned Leadership. That's renowned ED, not renowned, renowned leadership.com. And at the bottom, let's see here. Bottom right, I'm dyslexic, so forgive me. Bottom right hand corner of the screen, there's a little chat bubble that comes directly to my cell phone. That doesn't go to anyone else on my team. So you can email me if you want, which my email is also on my website, but that little chat bubble comes directly to me. I check it religiously. So just fire away, ask questions if you want to learn about the goal program. It's called Purposeful Success. You're more than welcome to hit me up about that. I'll put you on the wait list. If you want to learn more about what I do and how I can help you, I'd be happy to sit down with you absolutely free. I don't, like I said, I give away knowledge. If I have to handhold you, it's free. Or I mean, if I have,
No, the other way, the
if
other
I,
way.
remember I'm dyslexic. If I have to handhold you, it's not free. But yeah, just go to renownedleadership.com. And I also have a podcast. It's called Renowned Leadership. It's on all podcasting platforms. And yeah,
Fantastic. Now I'm going to have all of those contact details in the notes below here. So do go and hit Stephen up, have a look at what he does. I really appreciate his time tonight. And I know it's 10 p.m. there. Thank you so much for making the time in your evening. I'm going to remind people to, let me see if I get this right, like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell to find out when I drop more content. And if you're on a platform where you can leave reviews 5 stars, please. I like 5 stars. They're very helpful. If you don't want to leave a 5-star review, that's fine. If you've got feedback, I'd love to hear that as well. That's really important just so we can all improve. So thank you so much for your time tonight, Stephen, and I will see everyone else next time.
bye, everybody.